The village of Mpanza was nestled at the foot of the great Mount Uvangu, where the river Zanzi flowed, fed by the ancient rains. The land was fertile, and the people of Mpanza had lived in harmony with the earth for centuries. It was a simple life, a life that honored tradition, the seasons, and the balance of nature. The villagers grew their crops, tended their animals, and celebrated the earth's gifts during the harvest festivals. But it was not just the land that provided for the people, it was the people. Its bond with nature and the spirits of the earth that protected them. In this village, Amahal was born, the daughter of Nkosi, the village healer, and Thando, the former priestess who once held the village's spiritual connection to the earth. The river was her closest companion, as it had been since she was a child. Her mother had warned her that the river had its own secrets, some better left unknown. The wind screamed, the trees bent with unnatural force, and the river swelled, threatening to overflow. But Amahal felt a calmness, knowing that she had never felt before. With her hands pressed into the soil, she whispered something no one could hear, and the storm, almost as if answering her, began to subside. The wind softened, the trees steadied, and the river slowly calmed. But to Amahal, the river was a bridge to the spirit world one she could feel, but not fully understand. Thando had stepped away from her role as the village's spiritual leader to raise her daughter. The villagers had noticed the clouds gathering on the horizon, but no one was prepared for the ferocity of the storm that struck the village that evening. The villagers saw her as a quiet woman who had once been powerful, now living in the shadows of her past. She had always been able to sense things before they happened, but now she felt a deeper connection to the land and its spirits. What he didn't know was how soon that gift would awaken fully. He had been the village healer for years, learning the ways of medicine and potions. But his true connection to the mystical world came from his own ancestors, the guardians of an ancient tribe that once ruled the land. She could hear the distant whispers of her ancestors, calling her to understand the full extent of the power within her. Amal's early years were spent in the company of her mother. She grew up surrounded by herbs, potions, and teachings about the spiritual world. But Amahal was never quite like the other children. They played under the warm sun. Amahal wandered by the river. Listening to the birds, Thando had always told her daughter to be careful with her gift, to not speak of it, for the power Amahal carried was ancient, passed down through their bloodline and connected to something much greater than the simple life they lived. In the wind, sensing things that no one else could. By the time she reached her adolescence, Amal's intuition had already begun to grow. She could tell when the rain would come, even before the sky darkened. She could sense when a person was lying or when a sickness was about to strike. She could hear the whispers of the wind in the evening, and the rustling of leaves during the day told her stories no one else could hear. Every plant in the village, every tree and every flower seemed to speak to her in a language only she could understand. Her mother Thando kept a watchful eye on her, fearful that the world might one day ask too much of Amal's gift. But the truth of Amahal's power was a secret one that Thando had kept hidden from the village. As the years passed, Amal's connection to the earth and its secrets grew stronger. At night, Amal would sit by the river alone, her feet submerged in the cool water. It was during one of these quiet nights that Amahal first truly understood the weight of the power she carried. A storm had been brewing for days. Amahal, sitting by the river as the storm raged, felt something deep inside her stir a force that connected her to the earth itself. When she returned to the village the next day, Amahal felt something had changed. Amel's father, Nkosi, had always known that his daughter carried the ancient gift of their people. The man stepped forward and called out to the village. "We are the descendants of the Kuvona tribe," he announced, his voice smooth yet full of threat. Amel's father, Nkosi, stepped forward. "What is it that you seek?" "Your daughter holds what rightfully belongs to us. Her gift, the power to commune with the earth and the spirits, was once part of the Kuvona tribe's legacy. It was stolen from us, and we've come to claim it back. This land has belonged to the people of Mpanza for generations. We have come for what belongs to us." The villagers, stunned by the sudden appearance of these strangers, gathered around to listen. Amal's head spun with the truth she had just learned. Her father, Nkosi, had always kept her in the dark about the history of their ancestors, perhaps to protect her from this very revelation. "Amahal, the path before you will not be easy. You have the power to restore balance, but you must choose carefully. you cannot wield your gift recklessly. If you give in to fear or hatred, you will lose the very essence of what makes you strong. But now, she understood that her connection to the earth and its spirits was indeed just a gift. It was a legacy tied to an ancient power struggle. I know you fear me, Empho, but you must see the truth. My power is not to dominate. It is here to protect, to heal, and to bring balance. If we fight, we may destroy everything we've worked for. But if we learn to trust in the earth and in each other, we can create a new future. But she also had to face the growing conflict between her gift and the fear that it instilled in the men of the village, including Chief Empho. We have feared what we did not understand. But now, we see that you are the one who can guide us through these dark times. The next day, the villagers gathered at the central square to discuss the arrival of Zara and his men. She stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with authority. And as for Amahal, she continued to lead with the wisdom of her ancestors, knowing that the greatest strength lies in knowing when to fight and when to heal. Now, what do you think of Amal's journey? Do you believe that true power lies in wisdom and balance, or in strength and dominance? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe for more powerful stories from the heart of Africa. The winds howled, the trees bent as though bowing to her power, and the river surged with newfound strength. Zara and his men tried to resist, but they were overwhelmed by the force of Amel's connection to the earth. You do not understand the power I carry. It is not for domination, but for protection. The storm had passed, and with it the fear that had plagued them. She had confronted her family's past, embraced her destiny, and protected the future of her village. The land had spoken, and she had listened. And I will protect this village, even if it means facing you and your ancestors. Amahal stood at the forefront, her heart heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. She had tried to lead with wisdom and compassion, but the time for quiet diplomacy had passed. She was no longer just the daughter of a healer. She was a leader, a protector, and a symbol of the strength that lay in wisdom, balance, and compassion. The villagers, once fearful of her power, now revered her, for they understood that true strength lay not in force, but in the ability to listen to the earth, to the spirits, and to one another. The land itself had rejected their dark intentions, and the villagers, witnessing the true power of Amel's gift, began to understand. No longer was she a girl to be feared. She was a leader, the rightful heir to the Kuvona tribe's legacy, and the protector of the balance between the earth and its people. The village was on the brink of collapse, and only Amel's powers could prevent a catastrophe. The man who introduced himself as Zara smiled coldly. How can I protect the village and the power I carry? My ancestors chose a different path. We used our gift to heal, to guide, and to live in harmony with the land. Amel's heart raced as she listened to Zara's words. She had long suspected that her mother, Thando, had been hiding something about her past, but she had never imagined this. Chief Empho stood beside her, his face grim but resolute. Amahal, you have been the heart of this village, but we cannot allow this threat to destroy us. We must stand together, and we must fight. Amahal, daughter of the Kuvona tribe, you can no longer hide from your destiny. Your power belongs to the Kuvona people. Surrender it to us, and we will leave your village in peace. Refuse, and we will take it by force. The Kuvona tribe was an ancient and powerful people who once ruled over vast lands, controlling the natural forces and communicating with spirits. The power she had inherited wasn't just a gift, it was a responsibility passed down through generations. Her family had chosen to hide this power, to live quietly and humbly, not to disturb the fragile peace of the world around them. But now, the secrets of her lineage were laid bare for everyone to see. But many years ago, something had happened that led to their downfall. In the face of Zara's accusation, Amel's mother stepped forward, her voice steady yet filled with sorrow. Zara speaks the truth. We are indeed descendants of the Kuvona tribe, but you have misunderstood the purpose of our gift. It was never meant to dominate. It was meant to protect the balance of the land. Amahal stood in stunned silence, absorbing the weight of her mother's words. Thando continued, the Kuvuna tribe was once divided. One faction, led by Zara's ancestors, sought to control the earth and its spirits for power. Zara's eyes flashed with anger. Your ancestors betrayed us, Thando. And now, your daughter will pay the price for that betrayal. Amahul turned to her mother. What do I do now? How can I stop them? Her mother's eyes softened with a mix of pride and concern. Amahul nodded, understanding the gravity of her situation. She had to confront her lineage and the responsibility that came with it. Azaro stepped forward once more, his voice filled with venom. Amahul looked at the villagers, her heart filled with both fear and determination. Amahul turned to him, her eyes filled with both sorrow and understanding. Azaro sneered. Your words mean nothing, Amahul. You are weak, just like your ancestors. Amel's eyes blazed with the power of her ancestors. In that moment, Amel raised her hands to the sky, and the earth responded. As Amel called upon the forces of nature, Azaro and his men were forced to retreat. Chief Empho, once a skeptic, bowed his head in respect. Amel, you have proven yourself. Your power is not a curse, but a blessing. Amahul looked around at the villagers. Her people-land felt a deep sense of peace. In the years that followed, Amahul became the heart of the village. Amel's tale became a legend passed down through the generations, a reminder that true power is not something to be feared, but something to be nurtured and respected. One evening, as the full moon hung brightly in the sky, Amel's mother sat her down. The time had come for the truth to be revealed, Thando asked, her voice tinged with both pride and sorrow. Amahul, you felt it, haven't you? Felt what? Amahul replied, her heart racing. Thando handed it to Amahul with trembling hands. Thando reached into the wooden chest beside her and pulled out an old carved bone. It had intricate markings that seemed to glow in the moonlight. You carry the bloodline of those who could speak to the winds, the trees, and the animals. Your gift comes from them, Thando explained. Your ancestors were more than healers or warriors, Amahul. They were spiritual guides-keepers of the earth's balance. Amahul took the bone in her hands, feeling the weight of its history. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, and she suddenly understood everything's a storm. Her connection to nature, the way she could sense people's fears and desires. She could feel the presence of the dark men from her dream drawing closer. The danger is not from the drought or the sickness, it is from a group of men, strangers who seek to take what we have. They know about my gift. One evening, as the village gathered to discuss the growing crisis, Amahul stood up. And how do you know this, young girl? He asked. Because I can feel them. They are already here. They want to take my power and use it to control the land. They do not understand the balance we have with nature. They seek to destroy it. It has always been a blessing, but it is also a curse. The darkness was coming, but it was not just a physical threat. It was an attack on the very essence of the land spirit. Amahul had to make a decision. Embrace her power completely and lead her people, or hide from it and risk the destruction of everything she loved. I've seen the way you lead, the way people listen to you. It was a tall man, cloaked in dark robes, with eyes that gleamed like molten gold. He was followed by several others, and they moved through the village like shadows unnoticed by many. But Amahul saw them. She felt the coldness that radiated from them. She called upon the spirits of her ancestors. And the land itself responded, the earth beneath her feet rumbled. The wind howled, and the stars seemed to shine brighter than ever before. Despite Amel's warnings, the men of the village could not shake off the feeling of unease. The crops continued to fail, and the sickness spread in a way that seemed unnatural. The village elders were growing desperate, but their solutions were failing. But I fear what will happen if you have too much influence over the village. We, the men, have always ruled here. What happens if we lose our place? There are those who will stop at nothing to take it from you. They had always ruled through physical strength and logic, but they realized that they had no answers for the unseen forces that Amahul spoke of. He had respected her mother, Thando, but had never understood Amal's mysterious gift. He had always prided himself on being the protector of the village, but now he felt useless in the face of something he couldn't control. Days after Amel's dream, strange occurrences began to plague the village. He looked at her with a mix of admiration and fear. Cattle went missing, crops began to fail, and the villagers became uneasy. The once peaceful community was now on edge, and rumors began to spread about outsiders approaching the village. Her power had always been there, but now it was awakening. The power I carry is not to dominate, but to guide. We must work together if we are to save the village, but you must trust that strength is not in domination, it is in understanding. As the threat from the dark men grew nearer, Amahal faced her greatest test. She was the village's last hope, but she couldn't do it alone. Chief Empho and the other men had to decide whether they would accept her power and stand with her, or whether they would continue to fear it. They were not from the village, nor the surrounding lands. She rushed to tell her parents, but Thando already knew. They came with a curse, one that had been passed down through generations. A curse meant to steal the power of Amel's ancestors. The men in the dream were after the very gift Amahal had inherited, the power to connect with the earth and its spirits. One evening, after the revelation of her ancestry, Amahal went to bed feeling both powerful and fearful. That night, she dreamed a vivid dream that seemed more like a vision of the future. She saw dark clouds hovering over the village, not from a natural storm, but from a great threat. The dream showed men with dark faces, their eyes glowing with an unnatural light. Amahal woke up in a cold sweat, her heart pounding in her chest. "The time has come, Amahal," Thando said gravely. "Your power is no longer a secret." Mel's parents tried to keep the peace, but the sense of unease grew. "I know what's coming," she said softly, her voice trembling with the weight of her revelation. The village leaders looked at her skeptically, but Chief Empho, the village's chief, eyed her with growing suspicion. Amahal hesitated, but then spoke with certainty, her heart pounding. The men of the village, once confident in their strength, now felt threatened by Amel's power. Chief Empho in particular struggled with his feelings toward Amel. One evening, as Amel sat by the river, Empho approached her. "You speak of things beyond our understanding, Amel," Empho said, his voice heavy. Amahal looked at him, her expression calm. "It's not about rule, Chief Empho. It's about balance." Amahal stood at the edge of the village one night, feeling the weight of her ancestors pressing on her. In that moment, Amahal embraced her destiny. As the days passed, a dark shadow loomed over the village. One night, as a heavy storm approached the village, a figure appeared at the entrance of the village.